Welcome to Remember Your Nature. My name is Faith Hannah Corbin, and today I'm your host. This is really exciting because I have my first interviewee today, AyoLane Halusky, who is my elder and friend and someone that I've known for a few years here. We're currently in Elkton, Florida. And I felt inspired to have AyoLane here on my podcast because he is my mentor in many ways, and we have shared a lot of deep conscious presence with one another. And we have both felt each other in a space of pure awareness, pure consciousness. And there's a lot of wisdom that I have gleaned from being in the presence of AyoLane, and to have him as a resource for me as an elder and as someone who I sit in ceremony with. So, hi AyoLane.
How are you?
I am well. How are you today?
I'm moving through all the things that you've said. I'm flattered, and I also need to watch my ego as well, because even being called an elder, I still struggle with that concept because I'm still learning on this planet. I've got a lot to grow as well. And so I think, I think that word in the native tradition is something that people are called to be, so it's not something that I could call myself. It's something that the people would call you to be. And so it's a concept that's difficult to accept because I've always grown up with elders and talking with them, and usually I'm the silent bump on the log listening,
Yes.
And to be called to be in a position of sharing some of my trials and tribulations and troubles in my life, which has given me knowledge and mostly wisdom, I'm being called to start sharing that now. So I have to shift gears and humble myself. So yeah. So thank you for the introduction, but it's also very humbling as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for providing that authenticity and that portrait of truth that you're feeling.
That's right.
And continuing to give an example for me as the person who is considering you my elder, as like eldership comes with a lot of humility.
Right.
And that you can hold that, and I really appreciate that articulation.
I'll do my best.
I'll do my best too. Aww. And in the world, AyoLane is a naturalist, and he is a native Floridian, and is extremely passionate about bringing people close to the natural world, to understand history and to understand biology and to understand all of those things,
Right.
but also to connect people to the natural world, to the land,
Right.
and to begin to feel into what that means to have an intimate relationship with the land. So I really appreciate that about you. And I have been on some of your trips, and they have been very enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, as a working for University of North Florida as the naturalist, and working for the St. Johns County Parks and Rec as the naturalist, I had to make sure I'm providing that information that's scientific and real information, but my dreams, desires, and goals have always been on a spiritual level, which I had to secretly put in there. So it's not something that I could say, hey, we're going out to do some immersion in the wilderness. It's more of a, we're going out to listen to birds. But then, what happens is always an awakening, no matter what. You walk in nature, you're going to have an awakening. Whether you're aware of it or not, that's the interesting part, because you would say awakening, you'd be aware, but some people aren't. They may feel moved. They may feel an emotion come over them when they walk in a certain area. And I do believe that nature reaches out to us to be able to provide those opportunities. So I might walk through a certain area that pops a childhood memory, and like, wait a minute, where did that come from? And so it's something that you need to learn, you need to listen, and that's something that's right for you at that moment. So more and more I guide people in the natural world. It's better on one-on-ones or smaller groups when you start to see these awakenings, but it happens every time. I used to work with adjudicated kids. Did you know that?
Adjudicated?
So kids that were in trouble with the law. So I did.
And that was for Outward Bound?
Well, Outward Bound, Trustler Care, Adirondack Wilderness Challenge Program, projects for a bunch of different companies. For about 8 or 9 years, I would be their legal guardian, taking kids out in the wilderness.
Legal guardian?
For 31 days. I worked for Children and Family Services mostly.
Wow.
And so court appointed, these kids were in my care, 12 of them, with 2 other staff. And I was their legal guardian for 31 days and on all the trips. And I would do 31 days and then have 2 weeks off, and I'd go right back out and do 31 days. And I did that for about 8 years, 9 years, give or take.
Wow.
But the interesting thing, the reason I even bring it up, these kids would get off the bus day one. Some of them have never even stepped off a sidewalk. They born and raised in the city and never really walked in the parks, you know? So like these kids didn't know nature at all. So they would step off the bus within 48 hours. And I would say some up to 72, but usually 2 days, not arriving and leaving like somebody goes camping. Oh, I camped for a couple days, but it took them half a day to get there, half a day to set up. So after the setup time was the time frame I'm talking about, I literally saw physical and mental changes that quick. 48 hours immersed in the wilderness does some magic to a person's psyche. Powerful, powerful changes.
Ooh.
And so, state those changes. I mean, it might just be the way they're talking. It might be the way they're talking about themselves.
Yeah.
It might be the way that they're interacting with each other. Instead of poking and prodding and being sarcastic, all of a sudden they're having compassion or they're having some kind of team ability without even being trained with teamwork. It's already started. It might be a huge blister that explodes psychologically. They may explode and all their shit comes out. But nature has a way of showing us who we are. You'll hear me say, at least I used to say it a lot more now, if you look into nature, nature looks into you. And that's a huge thing. And it's like, what does that mean? It could mean just walking up to a lake and looking down and seeing your own reflection. It could be as simple as that, which in a lake reflection isn't pure, it's altered. So you see layers upon layers upon layers of self, And there's all kinds of Native American stories about looking in the lake, and there's some really profound eco-psychology we were talking about earlier that they're just now putting words to the psychology that the Native and indigenous people have known for thousands of years.
Exactly. Yeah, personally, it's like my experience with you and with ceremony, coming to this land specifically and beginning to sit in Sweat Lodge, has completely changed my paradigm in terms of my relationship to nature and the natural world. I remember one time we were standing around the pit. There's no inipi, there's no fire or anything like that, but you were just teaching and Silver Fawn was there. And I was like, this was, I think, the first time I came to your land. Curious, but new. And you were teaching, and then all of a sudden I just touched one of the stones around the pit. And then later, Silver Fawn came up to me and she was like, what did that rock have to say to you? And I was like, I don't know. I just felt like touching it,
right.
But as time went on, it's really phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal, but incredible, amazing, awe-inspiring to see the way that we can learn how to deepen with the tree or with a bird that flies overhead, or the power and the symbology and the energy of the mold dirt,
right.
that you gave to us, and knowing that that is just as valid and relevant as this conversation that we're having right now. There's so much information that's being transmitted just in this slowness that we get to settle into when we do get to go out into the natural world. And then on top of that, add ceremony and intention and all of those things. And it's really sometimes hard to believe the things that, are seen and experienced and heard.
Well, it's like the concept of Lakota term is aho matakiyasan. So it's a concept which means we are all related, is the simplicity version of understanding that, even though it's a lot more complicated than that. It's a lot more deep than that.
Yeah.
But it's not a concept, it's a practice. So how do you practice we're all related? How do you incorporate that in your day-to-day life? That's huge. So touching that stone, maybe you weren't touching the stone, maybe you were touching the elder of the earth, the bones of Mother Earth. And even just saying the earth is our mother, that's a hardcore statement to somebody who is not connected in a way, you know? Like, what are you talking about, your mother? Well, if I look at the earth as my mother, I'm going to treat her with reverence and respect. I'm not going to throw trash on the ground, you know? I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to help her clean. I'm going to keep her care for it. And if we look at the earth, literally, it's our stability on the ground, right? We have gravity holding us to the earth. Well, a native indigenous culture, not just Native American, but indigenous world culture, that's grandmother's hug holding you close to her. But see the symbology of that compared to, I have to fight gravity. Do you really want to fight it? Or do you want to experience mother's hug holding you close?
That's so loaded. Just that one difference of grandmother's hug versus I have to fight gravity.
Right. So how are you living your life? In what way are you living? What way are you practicing your life?
In what way are you in relationship with your mother and your grandmother? You know, I feel that we've even lost that articulation, you know, that reverence. It's like, well, I actually don't have a relationship with my mom, or you know, she's invisible to me. So I feel like that only makes sense that would parallel, you know, our relationship with the discernment between the brother and the father and the uncle and the mother, you know, and the sister. You know, we don't even really have those true, kin-like, nourishing relationships in the complexities and the discernment and then therefore, you know, it would only make sense that if we don't have that, then when we look at the natural world and understand the rocks are our grandfathers and our grandmothers, what does that even mean?
Well, now I think you're hitting a subject that's, we could go 1,000 miles an hour and 1,000 years of conversations because what is your relationship with your blood mother? And because we all have traumas with our family. I don't think there's anybody that has a perfect relationship with their family. Their families are also there a little bit to give us some traumas so we can grow. It's not supposed to be perfect. Some are better than others, you know, some have some pretty horrific stories I've heard, you know. But and when we think of the earth as our mother, we think of the ideal mother, you know, that one that loves and nurtures and gives you the things that you need to help you grow. It might not be the things that you always want, but it's definitely things that you need. So Mother Earth is the ideal mother, a lot of times romanticized. But our actual mothers and grandmothers, fathers, brothers and sisters might not be that ideal. It might be pretty hard. And so now we're looking at, okay, how am I treating the earth? If I'm looking at it as my mother, my actual mother might be horrific and was never there, might have beat me, I don't know. Might have had a lot of trauma that has happened, you know? So therefore, who am I? Therefore, how am I taking care of the earth and my own surroundings and my interactions with other people? Because I'm gonna stem from those lessons. Now we can choose to let our traumas guide us, or we can choose to go into our traumas and try to heal them, which we might not be completely successful, you know, our entire lives, but it's still worthy of a practice. Because I think that question is, what feels right? What feels better? To be angry and hateful towards others, or to have relations that are supportive and enjoyable? I like a good laugh, you know? I like to feel comfortable in being who I am, even though I can be like a kid and completely crazy at times, climbing trees and stuff. I'm 50 years old now, so it's not as much. I don't climb trees anymore, but you know.
I'm sure you still do.
But it's fun, you know. We like to have fun. We know it feels good to us. So yeah, treat her as our romantic ideal mother, I guess is really what should be said. But I mean, it's a hard concept.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that. maintaining it as that reflection in that mirror to really understand the relationships that are going on within our own selves. And I appreciate that grounding because it is a subject that we can talk about for a very long time.
Oh yeah.
But to rein back, I would love to talk, get to know more about like you and your introduction to spirituality, but just like indigenous ways. I mean, your name is AyoLane. So if anything, naturally comes up of like how I would love to just get to know you more.
Well, it's interesting because we have stories, right? We all have our own stories. And our stories can be seen from other people differently than we see them ourselves. So that's a concept to understand right there. But my experience of my life is my own, and has shaped me who I am today, which I wouldn't take back any of the traumas that I experienced when I was younger, which some were pretty rough. But I have to say, looking back, because I've done a lot of deep ecology and looking into my own past, trying to heal traumas as well, But as a really little young kid, I was what they would call, there's books written on this stuff now called the high sensitive person. You've heard of high sensitive people? So that book is pretty accurate. Highly sensitive people. So that book's pretty accurate. And there was another book written called The Indigo Children, which I marked pretty high on those little stupid tests in the book, which is kind of interesting. But as a child, I was really quiet. I would often play alone. I was often in the woods, and I would talk to trees, and I would talk to, I had full-on conversations. It was not a big deal to me. I would literally...
From childhood?
Yeah, I'm talking early memories, like 4 or 5 years old, that kind of stuff. It was only till I was about 6, 7, 8 when I was told that was wrong. Now, I was born in the 70s, and so I was growing up in the later 70s and 80s. This was Florida, very hardcore Bible country, where alternative practices were not accepted. The idea of the Harry Potter witch was burning at the stake.
Yes.
That was what it was perceived back in those times. I've seen burning crosses in people's yards before with the KKK. So this is the times that I was right on the end of that era, but it was happening around me. If somebody was gay, which I'm not gay, but if somebody was gay, like, you could not talk openly about it. You would get beat up. And so these things, to have an alternative lifestyle that wasn't accepted in the churches was a huge deal. So I was about 8 years old when I became aware of the word sin.
Wow.
Because I went to church. My mom and dad brought us to church. I don't remember what denomination it was at this point, but my dad was a marine biologist, so a scientist. Even though my dad had almost every religious book that you could at the time in his library, because he studied religions, he thought it was interesting. So I had a kind of an overview.
Was he a Christian?
My dad calls himself a recovering Catholic.
Okay.
He was beat by the nuns when he was a child and asking questions. And so he had a hard time with religion for a long time, even though my dad was a highly spiritual person. But religion was dogmatic laws that were made by humans, not by anything that's above, So if you look at, we can go a whole concept with religions. So there's a whole thing about religions, but religions are made by humans. They're not made by any spiritual being, know. But if you look at most religions throughout the world, and there's countless religions throughout the world, if you can distill it down to its truth, down to its, like a alchemist would distill something down to its purest form, love, compassion, forgiveness. You see it over and over and over again. And so if you can distill things down and get past all the dogmas, will I burn sage? Will I burn frankincense and myrrh? Will I go sit in a pew? Will I go sit in a sweat lodge? Like if you can separate the dogmas, separate the things, the human things, then you can get past and see the truth. So back to when I was about 8 years old, and I was being called a sinner, because we're all called sinners. If you go to church, you're a sinner. You have to repent.
Broken.
And I became aware of what that meant. That's probably the first time I can remember feeling true anger. as 8 years old.
Wow.
And I was like, how dare they call me that?
Wow.
I wasn't a liar. I wasn't a deceiver. I wasn't any of those things at 8 years old. But I'm being called 8 years old a liar, deceiver, a sinner.
Wow.
And I have to repent. And so I'm being conditioned by the churches to be a sinner. Well, I asked my dad if I have to go back to church after that. I said, I don't want to go back. I don't like what they're teaching me. I don't want to be called that, because that's not how I feel like I am. That's not how I personally viewed myself, but that's how I was being told I was. Well, that's scary, to have a concept like that that's not naturally within my soul and my being, and being pressured to put that in my soul and in my being. I don't know if you can hear me completely, but that's scary to do to somebody. That's a conditioning. That's a socialization that's not natural. Our natural state is love, compassion, and forgiveness. Nobody's born a racist. They learn to be racist, right? It's taught to you, right? So natural state is including everyone and everything and being curious. That's why kids ask those embarrassing questions. They have somebody that has a handicap. Why does your leg not work? Well, that's an embarrassing for the adult, but it's not for the child, because they're really interested.
Yes.
They actually want to know.
Yes.
They're not going to make assumptions. They're not going to make judgments. They're just asking. I think that's beautiful. We don't need to crush that in our children, which we do. Our society does, like every day. So my dad said, no, you don't have to go back to church if you don't want to. But if you do, you have to stay at home and have quiet time. Do your homework, you can't go out and play. So he basically made it difficult. You either go to church like your mother wants you to do, and or you go and spend time alone, which he knew spending time alone would also bloom some of my internal spirituality as well.
Yes.
But he said, the other choice you have is to go to churches with your friends and go see what other churches are saying. So I did that. So I went to the Catholics, went to the Baptists, went to the Mormons, went to all these places, and they all basically said the same thing. And I decided that my religion, if it had to be, was going to be the wilderness. So the woods was not judging me. Even though there are harsh lessons in the woods. I mean, you walk through a briar patch, you're getting cut, unless you can learn to bend with the briar patches. Oh, there's a lesson right there. See? So nature was clear to me.
And the subtle language.
It was in a language that a curious mind could understand, And so I did that a lot. Of course, growing up, and I'll try to, because I could talk forever about the traumas and things like that, but growing up, I learned that I couldn't speak openly with people about my connection with the natural world because it was perceived witchcraft. It was perceived not biblical, and so most people were raised around me with the Bible and with those church teachings. And so I had to learn to camouflage. So I definitely camouflaged for many years, and later on, as I got older in my teens, I started experimenting with marijuana and a few other things, and a lot of that had to do with numbing. So living in a world in camouflage, not being able to be self, it was painful. And so I learned to camouflage through numbing out. So if I could be stoned, I could be accepted, right?
Yeah.
I could be in society and it wouldn't bother me, as much, Well, of course, we know that where that trail starts to lead, more and more and more. I think I got to a point of not happy with being on this planet, not happy being alive, not happy being in this society, and got to a point where I would have to say I was probably suicidal at 15 years old. My dad started this conference called the Earth Kinship Conference, and if you know me at all, you'll hear that name come up a lot because it's actually my business name now, yes. Earth Kinship, my ecotourism business. My dad and a friend of his, my dad being a scientist, a friend of his being an artist, a poet, decided to say, hey, let's talk about healing the earth with science and arts mixed together. And let's see if that works. And so he created this conference, and I can do a long story about the Earth Kinship Conference, but within that, all these different religions started to pay attention. So you had Catholics, and you had the Baptists, and you had the Native American people, you had the people from Australia, Aborigines, you had all these different indigenous and non-indigenous groups starting to show up and say, hey, we want to know what you're talking about. We want to be involved and be keynote speakers. And there was this one man named Eagle Man. He wrote a book, Mother Earth Spirituality. He was a Lakota elder, sweat lodge pourer and sun dancer. He was also an Air Force fighter pilot in Vietnam. So he was a pretty interesting guy. Invited me to a sweat lodge. And
Eagle Man?
Eagle Man, yep. Ed McGaw.
Ed McGaw, I think I've heard that
is
name.
his government name. So I went to the sweat lodge, and the first time I started hearing elders talk about similar stuff that I used to explore when I was 4 and 5 years old.
Wow.
And I was like, wait a minute, maybe I'm not crazy. Because, you know, from 8 years old to 15 years old, I'm thinking I'm just a lunatic because nobody else thinks this way, and I have to camouflage and hide. But here's
You
this.
want to hear something interesting that's a
Go
side
ahead.
note? The etymology of the word lunatic is, someone who cycles with the moon.
Moon, yeah,
Yeah.
Luna. Yeah, Luna.
Yeah.
Which they know when the moon cycles and the full moon's out, people have different thoughts. People they're a little bit outside thinkings. And so, yeah, that's
Sorry to
true.
interrupt
No,
you.
it's not interrupting. It's totally in concept of
Yeah.
cycles. You know, we really need to be paying attention to the cycles because there's actually 13, not 12 cycles of the moon. And we're all out of rhythm, which some people say conspiracy that was done on purpose to keep us out of alignment with our cycles, which I
Wouldn't
think
be too far off, I would say.
yeah, it's a way of controlling the masses. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
But you were experiencing the teachings, and they were paralleling what you
They
were
were paralleling with what I understood when I was starting to understand. I didn't understand, but what I was starting to feel as a child, you know. And here I am at this ancient ceremony. I almost didn't get in that sweat lodge because there was a Catholic priest there.
Sitting in the lodge?
He was going to come in. And so I'm outside going, I don't know if I want to be in a sweat lodge, my first sweat lodge with a priest, you know, like whom I don't, at that time I had a hard time with anybody that called themselves a priest because they're calling me liars, they're calling me sinners, they're calling, you know, this trauma from what I experienced when I was little.
Yeah.
There was another man who, Maynard Cox, who was descendant of Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce people. He was also known as the Snake Man in Florida. He did saved countless lives with snake bite treatments. He was also one of the frogmen, the first Navy SEALs before they called them Navy SEALs. Back, he did 4 tours in Vietnam, and he was like a grandfather to me. I'd known him since I was little. Him and my dad were really close, and he was there. But the fact that he was there, and he was the grandfather that I knew and I trusted, I went in. Now, that was the first healing I've ever had with the churches. Because when we got out of that lodge, which I had I can talk to you years about that first lodge, but when we got out of that lodge, I overheard the priest saying to the Ed McGaw, that was one of the most spiritual moments of my entire life.
Wow.
Here's this Catholic,
Wow.
right? Like, whoa, it hits you.
Whoa.
It hits you hard, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, maybe there is healing for them too.
Ooh.
Right?
Yes.
At 15 years old, I was like, whoa, maybe not all priests are bad people in my mind. So that was a big healing for me. It was a big eye-opener for me. Because I had a powerful experience. A lot of things happened but in that lodge for me. But that was an interesting moment, you know?
And that was a new experience for them, you know, like what were they missing? These people that we are supposed to trust as being the ultimate spiritual authority, for years studying and being in the church and all these things, and like being very well acquainted with the word God and everything that has to do with that in the Western world.
And certifications saying that they do know.
And that they are initiated, but then they come in and sit into the womb,
the Mother Earth's womb.
outside.
That's right.
And that they have the most spiritual experience that they've ever had.
And what he says in his entire life, that was a spiritual moment. So that was a very powerful thing. And there's probably other priests out there that says, well, he just didn't know what he's talking about then, which very well might be true. Who knows? But for me, it was something I needed to hear, and it was like, maybe there is truth in all religions. Maybe there's some truth in all religions. And I was starting to be more open to it at that point. But that lodge literally saved my life because I was on the verge of suicide at that time. And I left that lodge thinking now that maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe the society that I was being raised in and socialized is the crazy one. I don't know. So it was a concept. And of course, at that time, I'm 15 years old asking, well, what is it to be a man? What does that really mean, to be a man? And so, I dove into indigenous theories and cultures, and even the Jewish people still have a rites of passage for men and women. There's a lot of stuff, but our culture doesn't. Our American culture has no rites of passage for being a man or a woman.
Yeah.
A woman bleeds, so immediately she's a woman without any training, just you get to bleed.
Without really any
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, any conversation.
But a man does not have any physical thing that shows him other than a wet dream.
Yeah.
When he starts being able to produce sperm, all of a sudden maybe that's the man's rites of passage. I don't know.
Or he gets a job.
But it's a physical thing. Rites of passage has to do with cultural acceptance. So our cultural acceptance is what? We get to graduate high school, if we even get to do that, maybe GED. Maybe we go to jail and we get to be one of the people that went to jail, and now I'm out and, oh yeah, I went to jail. That might be a rites of passage for some, which I've seen it. Maybe it's graduating college is rites of passage for some people. Oh, join in the military. How about that? I get to die for my country. I don't get to drink. I get to smoke cigarettes and die for my country at 18. Is that a rites of passage? These things didn't make sense to me. What I understood during research is a rites of passage is where the elder men, this is for a boy, the elder men come to you, take you away from your mother, which usually looks traumatic in the old ways. This is the old romanticizing way of looking at indigenous cultures. They would steal you away from your mother as your mother's wailing and crying because you need to see the pain that it caused for her to lose her little boy. And then you go spend time with the men and you learn that society's masculine ways, how to be responsible, how to go through your fears, how to face things. But a boy's rites of passage, we often, and I've done a lot of research with Michael Meade and Robert Bly and Joseph Campbell and all these different, hero's journey type things. And I like what a lot about what they say. But a boy needs to experience some kind of symbolic death and rebirth. And if you look at young men, what do? They're crazy. They risk their potentially physical harm to do these crazy things to see if they can do it. So they're constantly seeking death. If you look at most men these days, they like to accomplish a task. They feel really good when a task gets accomplished. I'm building this thing. Once it's done, I can sit back, and look at what I've done and feel good about it, So that's seeking death. That's seeking the end of something, symbology, So that's a huge thing for rites of passage. And we don't provide that for our boys nowadays. Within the rites of passage for a lot of romanticized native indigenous cultures is all of the men are involved, your uncles, your fathers, your grandfathers, the neighbors' uncles, everybody. They're all involved. And when you finish this, you are perceived as a man and now treated differently. You have responsibilities. You may even be getting married. You might join a society of, certain societies within the culture, that give you other leadership qualities or authorities or whatever the case may be. And so you're groomed and accepted and received by the men. So the culture receives you. That's powerful. And there's a whole nother one for women. It's a whole nother ball game. But there's rites of passages I did not see in my culture, in my society. Now, there was a man named Silver Fox who was in charge of that first sweat lodge. Ed McGaw poured it, but it was actually under the altar of Silver Fox at the time, and Silver Fox, invited Ed to pour that lodge.
Was Silver Fox, was that Lakota?
Silver Fox was Muskogee, Yamasee, Lakota, and white.
Okay.
So he was a mix.
Okay.
But I started to attend his sweat lodges after that. And there's a lot of controversy about who Silver Fox was and all this and that. But he ended up being my first elder. And I worked with him for years and years and years. Went to elders gatherings with him. I went to, he was a speaker at the Noetic Science Conference in Boca Raton. I went with him there when Deepak Chopra was talking then. So he was one of the speakers in there. And so anyway, working with Silver Fox over the years took me off the ledge of suicide and brought me to trying to discover what a man was and who I was within this world that I did not like. I did not like the way the society was being run at the time. I was promised an indigenous rites of passage, by the way, at that time, by Silver Fox and by the men that were in that sweat lodge group, that family, the Tiospaye, they call it, extended family. And I worked with Silver Fox and other men doing rites of passages for many other young boys. By the time I made it to my late 20s or my early 30s, I don't remember, I went to Silver Fox and gave him back an eagle feather that he gave me for my rites of passage to begin my journey. And I said, I don't want this anymore. I don't need this anymore. And he was living in Poland at the time, and he had come back to America and was at my parents' house. And he looked at me and I asked him, I said, do you remember what this feather is? He's like, yeah, it was for you to go on a rites of passage. And he realized that he had not done it. And many years I'd asked him about it and it just never happened. But here I am helping others do all these rites of passages, and where's mine? And he looked at me, he took a knife out and he cut a notch in the feather and he handed it back to me and he says, you're right, you don't need that anymore. And so we had a long conversation about it another time, but there was some things that were supposed to happen within the men that was in the group that never happened. And so it kind of got forgotten about. But I put myself through Outward Bound training. So it was after 97. I went to an Outward Bound instructor training program because I had shifted my whole life after college. That's a whole nother story. And decided to work with adjudicated kids, young boys, helping them make better decisions, becoming men, right?
Yes.
So that became a huge part of my life at that time. And the Outward Bound training was team building, leadership. We were in the wilderness for 55 days, learning how to do whitewater, rock climbing, backpacking, orientating. Like, we were out in the wilderness.
Wow.
And that was a rites of passage in my mind. After I left that, I became an instructor, a wilderness therapeutic instructor, and I found a lot more of myself at that time. And so when I saw Silver Fox, I had to give him that feather back. And he agreed that there was a failure, and he admitted it and was okay with talking to me about that. Which, by the way, I still have that feather.
Oh, wow. Wow. Mind if I hold it?
Yeah. So that feather was originally given to me because the eagle itself had notched the first notch by pulling it out of his tail feathers. And it was a young eagle. It was a immature eagle. And bald eagles don't get their feathers till 4 or 5 years after they're alive. They become adults 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
And they actually get their white feathers. So this was one that obviously it's all dark. It's not, it was a first year probably eagle. And he notched the second notch that is in it with the knife at the top. And so that was indicating that it was done. And so
so do you feel that even though you did not have that like formal rites of passage with your elder men, that you did receive that over time and experience?
I confronted my elder with a wrongdoing, and I still saw him as a human being and an elder, because they're not perfect either. So yeah, I stepped into manhood. I still could respect and love him, even though that trauma was done and they did not follow through, which is about integrity, and that's huge for a man, right? Being a good man, is about holding yourself to integrity. You say what you are, you say what you do, you don't falter, and if you do make a mistake, you own up to it.
I feel like there's really so much to say right there in terms of being able to be under the care of someone that you really respect, look up to, and see their wisdom. And one thing that you said to me once was, well, in terms of when we're listening to others, to be able to hear with what they say, but to be able to like bring it into your being, but then ultimately take things with a grain of salt.
Sure.
To know like what really feels good and true. And because personally, like when I, have my elders and things, like I'm noticing a development within my own self to be in the practice of being more in my own trunk, in my own body, and to know that we're all imperfect human beings.
We are.
And I can't just be hanging off the word of like, these, you who has so much wisdom, Silver Fawn, my elders who are so wise and so experienced. But like if I don't, maintain it and bring it into my own self, and to really feel that like, oh, that feels true for me.
Right.
And the fact that you were able to go to him and to reflect that, I see, is very powerful.
My hand was probably trembling. Like I was scared to say this because,
I appreciate that too.
It was scary.
Yeah.
I had to confront my elder from a wrongdoing, and I wanted him to know that I didn't need that anymore. And it wasn't out of anger, but there was some sorrow, there was some I wish I would have, been able to experience this with you.
Yeah.
I always wondered when I was helping him with rites of passage for other young men, that he knew half as well as he knew me. Like, when is my turn? When is my turn? When is my turn? And there was that, But it wasn't meant to be. I was meant to experience it in this way. So, I had to literally create it in a way for myself. Now, is that a true rites of passage? Well, we could debate that all day long, but I got what I needed.
And you were confronting death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could have been death of my relationship with this elder. Handing that feather back, in my mind, could have been, we're never talking again. And that was scary too, because I highly respected him.
Yeah.
There was a time when I saw Silver Fox on a pedestal and saw him as unfallible. And when he made his first mistake in front of me and I caught him making that mistake, it was devastating for a little while. I had to reevaluate what I was doing to him.
What you were doing to him.
Putting him on a pedestal. It wasn't right to do to him. He had to live up to my pedestal. That's not right. So he taught me a lot, and I taught him some things too. And so it was a relationship, It's a mentorship. When you take on an elder, you're calling that elder up to that space. They can't be a self-proclaimed elder. The people call them to that. It's not, I'm this age now, I'm now have wisdom. No, not necessarily true, It's the life it's the mistakes that you've been able to make throughout your life, and have you been able to learn from them? Are you still making those same mistakes over and over and over and over again? So one person's elder might be totally different to another person's elder. And this is a really, really hard concept to understand. And I'm going to bring it into a very strange place. But there was a young woman that was working for me at University of North Florida, and she was an old addict. She had used heroin for many years and was on that treatment, whatever that drug is that they use to get them off of heroin. And she would talk to me on the side, because she started coming to sweat lodges and things too, but she would talk to me on the side about like some of her old friends, which they all stole from each other. They all lied to each other. They all, because the heroin was in control, right? But there was this one guy who was like their spiritual advisor in the heroin group that she was involved with. And I had a hard concept seeing him as an elder, but the more she talked about it, he literally saved lives. Like, he was in that group as an addict, but he had a level of wisdom that they needed to hear. And a lot of them died of overdoses. There's a few of them that got out of it, and she was one of those few that got out. But that man helped her get out, even though he was part of the problem. So, I mean, what level are you looking at? And what group are you seeing? Every group has eldership, leaders, followers. Every group has them all. So if you
consciously learn from experience of whatever it is.
Right. Why do you think gangs are out there? Kids that are pushed aside and kicked out of other societal groups form their own. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. Maybe the actions that they're doing aren't healthy, and maybe it cause harm to others. So you could see that as wrong, but in reality, they're just trying to provide for what they need. And if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, you know what Maslow's hierarchy is? So if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, we all need belonging.
Love and belonging.
We all need love. We all need freedom. We all need our own choices. Like, those are all fundamental in groups in the human experience, or should I say experiment. But you're going to find it one way or another, whether you're deciding to do Bible studies or you decide to do gang studies or you decide whatever it is that you're doing. Like, I'm a rock climber, so then there's a whole rock climber lingo and how they speak to each other.
Forager.
And, foragers. There's a whole lingo, and permaculturalists have their own. I mean, everybody has their own groups and societies of what they feel like they belong in, and there's elders in each one of them. It's just who's calling who to what. Now, did we get off subject or?
Maybe, but all of it is chalked with value. But I'd love to, maybe we could get into your experience and your perspective of, like, what are the characteristics of the sacred masculine, like that yang, that energetic of creation, and like the characteristics of an initiated man, and however that connects and whatever wants to come through you.
Well, I think an initiated man needs a community of balanced men first. And I don't know if we have that really in our society right now.
Yeah, when you were speaking, I was considering, like, what men would I desire to be in my life? And another characteristic that's coming up is, like, does he have male mentors? Does he have that eldership around him that he can ask from?
True. But somebody that is breaking the mold might not have them, but is still a good man. So it's really difficult to take a list and generalize it, I think it's when it comes to relationships, there are thousands of books written on it. It's probably one of the most controversial subjects that will ever be for the rest of humanity, is how to find the right relationship. And I think that has to do with what it is that you're working on, what it is that you're doing. I really think it has nothing to do with the other person at all. I think it has to do with you. So if you can evolve yourself through the things that cause anger and cause upset and cause the traumas and not project onto others, then that opening of what it is that you're looking for will come. And usually, so Joseph Campbell has a really cool BBC interview that he did 2 weeks before he passed away. And he talks about relationships, and I highly recommend you listen to it because it's really interesting. And I can't remember if there was 3 or 4 levels of he was talking about in his studies with relationship. And there's that one relationship where, you know, one isn't dominant and one is submissive. You know, that's one type of level. Then there's another relationship where they're both balanced, they're both equal, they're both making decisions, and that's usually what people idolize as the best relationship. And then there's another one, and there might even been another one beyond that, but the other one is this relationship that's rare, and that's what people call their divine union. But usually the relationship is the 2 people come together, they support each other, they feel like they're a better person with this other person that helps them. And their goal, because there's the 2 people and then there's relationship as the third thing, right? So these 2 people are individuals, they have individual ideas, they're not half of each other. They're individuals sharing the same space as one, but they're creating this thing called relationship. And this higher level, I don't know what to call it, higher level relationship usually has a goal between the 2 that's beyond them.
Yes.
Has nothing to do with them, has something to do with what they're helping others do. So I think that's the truth of biology. It's a cooperative, it's not a competition. So if you're finding competition, defensiveness, you're finding projections, you did this, it might not be your divine. That might be something that you can work with to get to the divine, but you have to own your own stuff, and you got to stop projecting onto others. And then you'll find that space, maybe you won't, maybe you will, where that relationship is evolved way past the individuals, and now you're providing something for humanity.
I feel like this is what everyone needs to hear.
I think we're all seeking that. We just, some of us don't realize it.
Yeah.
I think, and I may be wrong, but you know,
like what, as 2 whole individuals come together with same values, same level of integrity, same level of commitment and devotion to cultivating themselves and developing themselves in the ways that feel most alive and natural, and what purpose and magic can be created in that union that is rippling out for more healing and life and vitality and goodness and beauty to the world.
Yep, exactly right. And the only way that you're going to find that is to evolve self. So they say all the great masters, and I do believe the age of gurus is over. I think they call the age of Aquarius, where we're becoming more awake and aware. We don't need a guru or an elder to tell us who we are, you know, but we do need to work on evolving ourselves and moving past our own shortcomings, if you may, you know.
I appreciate that.
And I don't believe that a divine union is not going to have arguments. If you have that concept, you're not human. We're human. We have traumas. We have anger is a natural thing that happens within our bodies. We don't even completely understand it. Psychological people and psychiatrists say they do, but they're still learning about it too.
I feel like anger is so important.
It is important.
For protection and boundaries.
So is sadness. So is depression. Those aren't death threats. They're just an experience. I really love right now what's happening with the destruction of the American society is happening right now. But in the middle of it, there are these monks who just all of a sudden from Texas decided to walk to Washington, D.C. And I'm so surprised when I hear somebody that hasn't heard of them. And I actually got to see them in North Carolina, and I was really impressed of just listening to the lead monk and his vision. And basically all he's saying is, be at peace. Find your peaceful place, and nobody can take that from you. You decide. It is a choice to be at peace. And he showed a couple practices that they use. Put your hand on your heart and feel your heartbeat. Don't think about anything else. If a thought comes in your mind, allow it to be there and let it pass. This whole Buddhist mind thought of mindfulness. Feel the heartbeat and breathe. Pay attention to your breath. Don't force it. Don't make it deeper. Don't put it in an abdomen. Just pay attention to your breath. I'm so sorry. I need to turn that phone off.
Okay.
Pay attention to the right now, which right now my phone's ringing.
You're
pay attention to this, and you will reach a state of peace. And always, what I've learned with the native technologies and indigenous cultures is when you go outside, most of us go on a walk because we have something in our minds we're trying to work through. So people do a speed walk, or maybe they're trying to exercise, or maybe they're trying to get to that historic location they want to see, or the vista, and they lose the whole path of getting there. And so what I was trained young was when you go outside your establishment, whatever, take that step on the earth, take your shoes off maybe, but feel the ground, touch it with your hand, feel the moisture, and pay attention to how it feels. Take a deep breath and smell what it smells like around you. Pay attention to that. Open your eyes and look for all the different colors of green you can see, or blues, or reds, or yellows. Look for motion. Look for shadow, contrast. All of a sudden, go through all your senses. Listen for sounds far away or close up. Immediately what happens is you become in a peaceful state. There's no thought. You're just paying attention. You're being aware. That's what he's saying. Find your peaceful place and make that commitment that today is going to be peaceful for me. Today. Just for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to stay at peace. And practice that every day. He said 64 times and 64 days, and you will achieve this as a practice. I thought that was interesting. Why is it 64?
Why?
Whatever. That's that whole guru thing, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. But I think we need to slow down. I agree with him. And most of the elders say this too. Most of the native elders say this. The world's moving too fast. We need to slow down. And we need to pay attention to ourselves and what really is that we need. Most of us are struggling to pay our bills, get to work on time, make sure the kids are fed. There's all these things that are difficult to be alive and doing. Are we capable of it? Yeah. Have we chose this? As a world society, we have chosen this. Yeah, so I'm a part of it too. What do we want to choose now, I think is the question. And these guys are just walking. And people, when I saw in North Carolina, people are out there, it's freezing conditions, and it was lined all the way, there was thousands of people just to watch monks walk by.
That feels very hopeful and poignant to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And boy, if you're an energy person, you can feel them when they're walking by. You can literally feel them. They're very, very special people. They're human. They're not perfect. I'm sure if you dig in their history, you'll find some stuff. Who cares? What are they doing right now? What are they working towards right now? They're sharing the word of mindfulness. They're sharing the word of peacefulness in a time of chaos.
And that's possible. It's possible to root even more into the stillness, into the silence, into the awareness, even when the chaos gets bigger and louder. It's possible. We have to be that, well, not have to, but we can be that equal and opposite force.
Right. So when it becomes sacred masculine and moving towards that, I think we first need to start, and this might be controversy, we need to start with the children when they're born. Stop circumcising men, number one. Don't make our first experience after the trauma of birth, which it can be traumatic, chopping the part of their one spot that connects them to the woman, making that painful, and then giving back to the mother who's supposed to be there that you've been with 9 months and loving and caring in the womb. And now all of a sudden, your mother, and this feeling that I don't understand that you just chopped off the tip of my penis. That's number one. We need to stop doing that. And I don't know why that's such a thing. There's a lot of people say, oh, it's for cleanliness and it's for cancer stopping, and that's just all been disproven. you know?
Yeah, and like, when men actually really feel that, when the layers do come back, or when the layers are cleared, and when we actually think about that and really sit with the experience of that happening to your male body, I feel like there's a lot to be said there. Like
Sure.
when we stop numbing and really feel that's a really big deal.
Well, they've already proven that children that have trauma experiences at a young age that don't remember them still affect them.
Mm-hmm.
So even before you can speak, first thing you do when you go to a psychiatrist or psychologist, they say, tell me your earliest childhood memory. That's one of the first things that you'll talk about. Well, why? Well, because we're trying to dig out where the traumas happened, because that's what we need to face. Well, what if you don't remember it? I didn't realize I was circumcised until I was about 14 or 15 years old.
Really?
And I had it out with my parents. I yelled at them. I was mad. How dare you chop off something that's my body that I did not consent to? I was angry. And some men actually have mistaked surgeries that have caused real problems in their lives. So something that's supposed to be sacred and special that you offer as a gift to your lover is now trauma. So we can talk for years about that. That's where I think we have to start.
But a very important note. Yeah, and I'm
think
glad
we have
that
to
that
start there.
conversation, yeah.
We have to protect our babies.
Yeah.
That's our job as parents. We don't need to make this mainstream and something we should do. The other thing is, boys need to be boys. We're just talking about men right now. I'm not talking about women. But boys need to be boys. They need to run. They need to be active. They don't need to be stuck behind a desk and forced to write something down. I know that's the way our school system is right now. And I think I could talk years about the school system, because I don't believe that it's creating individuals that are free. I believe it's creating people that follow in order and do as told. I think that's what it's been designed to do. And boys sitting in a desk, being forced to do the schoolwork that's there, most of us boys go crazy. We need to go outside and run. And I'm not saying they can't sit down and write. Yeah, they need to learn and read or write. I agree with that, but I think it can be done differently. School is about learning, and children at an early age are sponges and want to learn. Why do we beat that out of them? By the time they're in 6th grade, they don't really care about it anymore.
And that's so interesting. It's so true.
There's a whole huge subject we can go at, and I'm just giving you my opinions.
Yeah, of course.
But in indigenous cultures, and I'm not talking about Native Americans, Celtic and African, and all over the world, the elders are there. Elders are usually people that are at an age where they can't make the bows and arrows. I'm talking old culture. They can't produce the foods anymore. They're getting to the age where they need to be more taken care of than take care of others. But their job is to spend time teaching the children, telling the stories, reminding them who they are, paying attention to what kids good at what, and then fostering that and helping them move forward towards the goal that's going to help the society, help the world, evolve self, all those things.
And foster internal wisdom.
Right.
The process of coming into the body and feeling into what feels true and what feels real.
So what do we do with our olders, let's say, not elders. What do we do with our olders?
We put them away.
We put them away. We drug them up.
Yeah.
We make them feel like their life isn't needed anymore.
It's inconvenient.
Yeah, it's an inconvenience now, instead of listening to them and having them a part of our culture. We shut the doors at our neighbors. We don't even know our neighbors anymore. God, it's just too much going on. I don't have time to make connections like that. Well, that's a problem. So how to foster a divine male? Well, we have to make a lot of changes. I don't know if it's a struggle. And for us men to find each other is a struggle, What
do you think men need most? I know that's a broad question, but...
I don't know if I can speak generally for men,
Yeah.
I don't think that's fair for me to speak. We have so many cultures and so many different ways of viewing life. I think it's how we're raised and what circumstances we've been put in create different needs. So I don't know. That's a very good question. I think there was a point where the patriarchal society was encouraged for a long time, and I got way too out of control, where men were now bosses to their wives, and that's not appropriate. But then there was a cultural shift, and this is Robert Bly and other people have talked about these things, where 60s and 70s the soft male was encouraged. The emotional male was encouraged, which I don't think is a bad thing, but it got to be a point to where the men were losing their places in the world. They were no longer the providers. Women were saying, we don't need you anymore, and we're going to do it ourselves. And so the men were like, okay, well, I guess, not, I'm speaking very generally now, which is not fair, but we started to see a lot of men leaving the marriages, leaving the relationships, and women were starting to raise boys. So the women were raising the boys. So well, we have a whole generation of boys raised by women. Not all, but a lot. I mean, a huge
who
amount.
haven't separated and who haven't met their male elders.
Well, there's a lot of men not in family groups, and it's still happening. And so I do believe you need a community to raise a child. I don't believe you need a man and a woman. You need a community. And usually communities will help keep relationships together and help you find the right relationships in the start. So I mean, there's all of that. There's a lot to do with that. I think men need men. Men need men time. And we need to have it as productive time where there's a reason that we're coming together. There's a purpose that we're coming together. And through that, it fosters that brotherhood. It fosters that support. Men have a way of holding another man accountable. Negative or positive, it's still there. And I think accountability is a huge thing. If you don't have your brothers looking after your back and help and guide you as well, it's not going to be there. Unfortunately, when in the 80s and 90s, a rites of passage for men is like, how much beer can you drink? How much pots can you smoke? How many girls can you have sex with? Like, that was encouraged in these groups when you weren't allowed to be talking about that stuff. Like, as a child, you're not allowed to talk about that stuff in open society. So they talk about it in their own little groups. They create their own little, gangs and groups and clubs, and that's what's happening. So why did that happen? Well, I have my suspicions about that too. We have a lawyer-based society where you go to a summer camp and break your arm, and the summer camp gets sued and gets shut down. Well, is it the summer camp's fault? Is it the child's fault? Whose fault is it? Well, that's the problem. We're trying to point the finger at somebody instead of saying, the arm got broke. Let's deal with that. You know what I mean? Now, was the person not paying attention, or maybe the counselor pushed the kid out of the tree and he broke his arm? Well, yeah, I can understand that there's some negligence that needs to be taken care of. I understand that. But that's not always the case, It could just be simply the kid fell at summer camp and they broke their arm. Well, if that's the case, why is the summer camp getting sued for negligence? So and I'm not saying that's all the time, but that's happened enough times to where now everybody's so damn scared to allow their child to get hurt or allow them to be with other people. Well, now we're finding out that even some of the people that we did trust are pedophiles and raping our children. It's like, what the heck is going on? So these things, unsafe societies become a little bit more, what do they say? When you sell your safety and security for freedom, there's something to be really looked at that point.
And I think it begs a question of like our collective allergy towards confrontation and disagreement, and learning how to have accountability, but learning how to have accountability that is held in the container of love and respect. That doesn't mean that there aren't like ramifications, that there aren't consequences that
sure.
but I think that, this energy of separation and fear, and that I'm not going to belong, I'm not going to have a place if there is an issue. And so therefore then we all streamline to masking ourselves, to being a part of the status quo.
Well, there's a little bit of social structure that's I believe that's supportive towards that too. Like if I go out of realm in this area, I'm not going to be fitting in and belonging. So I might think about doing that before I do that. You know what I mean? Like this might not be a good idea to do this because I'm not going to be respected and accepted. But can that person recover from that mistake? That's the key. You know? I think that's where the elders come involved. I think that's where the leaders, really what a leader, not boss, but a real leader, because the leader is the person that's behind the scenes, where the people say, look at what we've done. A leader that says, look at what I've done, is not a leader. They're the person that's in the front. The leader's usually in the back supporting the people. They're in the front charge in the war, but they're in the back of the community building and helping the people build the community. So I think that's where those leaders and those elders come in play. Say, okay, you made a mistake. How can we rectify this? In what way does it make sense that we can move through this?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I think we're so far lost in the legals words. There's a whole dictionary of legal words that we use commonly that they don't use the same words meaning the same things anymore. So now our culture has gotten to a place where that word doesn't really mean that, depending on what stage you're standing in. That's scary. You know? It's gotten forked tongue.
Forked tongue.
Or somebody says talking out of both sides of their mouth. They're saying this, but they mean that. Or they're saying this, but actually it means this. See, so that it's confusing.
I feel like that's our mode of operation.
That's unfortunate because that's a deceiving society.
Yeah.
It's
and
not an
there's also a
honest one.
confusion about what it actually means to just say something that feels true to you.
Right.
Well, if you were to give any advice to a young man who is in the process of growing and developing as an elder, what would be something that you would say to him?
Don't seek being an elder. It's not about being the best of the best if that's what you're perceiving that to be. An elder is not on the top tier. To be the best human you can be, I would say follow your passions. Follow what makes you happy, what gives you joy. You know, if it's flipping burgers, great, then do that. But do the best burger flipper you can be. If that's really what gives you joy, then do it. But if it's not, seek what gives you passion. And I think you'll evolve. The hard part is what I have a hard time with is I want to know how. I want to know how it's going to happen. How am I going to get there? I want to see it. I want it to be spelled out for me. But as I grow older, I realize that we don't get to always know the how. But we do get to know what our passions are. We do get to know what feels good.
What feels good.
So why don't we just follow that and it will work out. You might not be the Mercedes driver with the 5 houses in 20 countries. What I mean, 20 houses in 5 countries, however you want to look at it.
But you could,
but you might not look that way. But if that's your ideal, then I think you're going to struggle. But if you're okay with just being happy with what you do, and know that life is a struggle. It's part of what we do. Find beauty in the struggle. Find some comfort in the suffering, and know that it's a frame of mind, it's a frame of place, it's a frame of what you're doing, but you can find peace and find harmony if you follow your passions. You're willing to look at the mirror and really look at the person looking back at himself. That's the other thing I didn't tell you about when I went to my first sweat lodge is when I got home was the scariest thing that I had. And that was my biggest awakening. Because I could not look at Silver Fox in the eye or Ed McGaw in the eye. And that was big for me. If I can't look at you in the eye, there's something wrong. And I kept wondering why. So when I got home after that sweat lodge, I don't know, it was a day or so later, I looked at myself in the mirror, and probably for the first time in a long time, I looked at my eyes. I looked at me, not looked at the pimple or looked at whatever, you know, the dirt or whatever that I had to wash off. I looked in my eyes, looked in my soul, looked at myself, and I did not realize what had happened, but I had spit on the mirror. Nobody else was in the room. I'm the only one that could have done it. When I really looked at myself, I did not like what I saw. That day I changed. That will never happen again. I'm going to look at that person in the mirror and respect what I see. So every day I need to do something and make sure that I'm on that part of myself that's true to myself and trying to follow my passions of who I believe I am and who I'm working towards. So I never spit in the mirror again. That scared me. Told you I was suicidal. I was at the point of like, I can't do this anymore. So that sweat lodge saved my life, literally saved my life.
That's so powerful. That is so powerful. Thank you, AyoLane.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And not just young men. Excellent advice for all beings trying to find our way.
That's right. If it doesn't feel right, you shouldn't be doing that. You know?
Thank you so much, AyoLane, for your wisdom.
Well, my little bit of life,
your experience,
little bit of life
your
that I've had. And hopefully I get to continue to grow. And I mean, that's what life's about. You know, I think this earth plane is about it going through the trials. This is a tough situation, a tough experiment to go through. And I think it's worthy. It's worthy of a life to experience. We get to make a lot of good choices. We get a lot of bad ones too, but that's how we grow, you know?
I agree. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. We really value you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I hope you have a long career of podcasts.
Thank you, AyoLane.